The Dressrosa manga is 10 times better than the Dressrosa anime. And I know I'm saying this and it's like, this is a no brain take. But recently I got done reading, of course, this is the start of Zoe, but I recently got done reading the manga version of Dressrosa and it is 10 times better than the anime. But I do feel like, unfortunately, there is some stuff where the anime outshines the manga. For example, I think the first thing that stood out to me the most was Senor Pink's backstory. In the manga, it is unfortunately around a chapter, but where the pacing kind of shines on and improves with the slow pacing is somehow in the anime, it kind of drags that out into an episode or two, and you get to know Senor Pink much more. And it really does impact the Frankie fight a lot more because in the manga, I feel like the Frankie fight was definitely in the back burner. And it was just something Oda had happening outside of the Pika Zora fight, outside of the Dofi Law Luffy fight, and it was just something in the background that Oda didn't really put too much effort into. But definitely in the anime, it definitely shined the most. And for some people, that is the best fight of Dressrosa for them. So I definitely do feel like it definitely built on a lot of things. Where the manga did a lot for me, I do feel like it definitely built on Corazon and Law's backstory a lot more than it did in the anime for me. So, as somebody that has watched the anime and that has read the manga, I'm now rereading the manga and getting up to that Dressrosa point. I'm like, wow. In the anime, I do feel like it definitely shined with the Frankie fight and the Senor Pink backstory, where you are following this and you feel like you are having this extra time with them. But I feel like that's where it falls short in the anime. You're spending too much time with Corazon. You're spending too much time with Law as a kid. I really do feel like Oda did it perfectly in the manga, where it was around, correct me if I'm wrong, it was believe a half a volume or a full volume where you're following them in this backstory and you really take it in why Corazon did what he did. And this is what I loved about Dofi. Dofi is such an interesting character to me because yes, he's a celestial dragon. Yes, he's a conqueror. Yes, he has all these things, but he does everything the best way. And I'm so sorry, I forgot whose video I watched on YouTube. It was an excellent video. And it basically went over why Dofi is the best written villain of all of One Piece in their opinion and why they think he is such a well-written character. And basically the whole synopsis of that video was he had the same upbringing as a protagonist, as any other shonen protagonist, but he chose to be bad. Because of this choice, that makes his every action that he does so much more impactful, has so much more weight because yes, Dofi can just turn around and just be a good guy like Luffy. In their words, he was like Luffy, but he made the decision to be bad. That improves on so much more of the decisions that Dofi has made, and it's why, to me, I enjoy Dressrosa a lot more in the manga. Because yes, you are following Dofi, but he has a reason to why he's doing all these things, and even with his family, he loves his family because that is all he has. And he even says, like, when people make fun of Pika's voice, like, yes, you're making fun of an evil guy in our eyes, but to Dofi, that is all he has. That's his only family. Because his father, yes, his father was a flawed man, but what he thought he was doing was truly correct. He thought that humans were meant to be humans and that and celestial dragons shouldn't live above them. So that is why he ultimately made the decision to drop down from Mary's Wall and go and live in the realm of the humans. But unfortunately, he couldn't scrap the wealth, and that got back to the normal people, and they started getting hunted for what celestial dragons have done to others. They were taking their rage out on Dofi and his family. And unfortunately, yes, they didn't do anything, but in marriage, while they owned slaves, they were a part of they were part of the group that was hurting and hunting down these people. So to them, they saw that they were doing the right thing. And when Dofi was getting crucified on that house and he was hanging there and he swore to kill everyone, that was truly what he saw was right. He didn't know what to do and he only saw violence. And yes, he was groomed in the sense where, excuse me, I forget his name. I think it's Tremble. I believe that's his name, the gooey guy. He was groomed in the point where he definitely took advantage of that and gave him the means to execute his violence on his father, where he killed him at 10 years old, put a gun to his face. But for his father to turn around and then go and say, I'm sorry for being alive, or I'm sorry for doing what you did, it was crazy to me because yes, Dofi did execute him, and yes, Dofi did do all this, but Dofi at the end of the day had a decision. Yes, he was a 10-year-old kid, but at that point in his life, he has seen so much, has been through so much that he knew what was right from wrong. And that is why The duality between the brothers for me is so good that Oda wrote. Yes, you have Corazon and you have Dofi. On one hand, you have Dofi, who chose to execute his father, who chose to go into this world of violence, and who chose to be Joker, who chose to do all this stuff in the underworld, fuel wars in all across the country, all across the world even, where he's supplying wars. And we even see when Dofi gets out of power, when he falls out and Luffy destroys everything, we see the world and how it is so impactful. And this is where Oda shines in the world writing. What Luffy defeating Dofi in that instance, it cascaded into Wano for us, but it also liberated so many other places just because their cutoff of supplies to their oppositions was done and they won wars. This is why Oda shines. But on the other hand, you have Corazon, who went through the same exact thing as Dofi. He experienced all the same things that Dofi did, but he chose to be a rightful person. He chose to be the good guy. He ended up being Marine, and his job with Sengoku, getting fathered under Sengoku, his job was to go under Dofi and basically spy on him and stop him from executing and basically going on with his Dressrosa plan. And that is why I absolutely love Law's backstory so much, because it just shows you the scale of some decisions that people make. If Law turned around and he didn't give the Dressrosa plan to one of Dofi's men, it would have never happened. And that's why I feel like it is just so impactful. Building on that, I feel like the anime does the Sabo introduction and the whole Sabo sideline much better than the manga does. While I do feel like the manga definitely does tease into it and leans into it a little, it doesn't really flesh it out and embrace it like the anime did. So for us, I believe, it's been a while since I watched the anime, but I believe how it goes is Luffy meets Sabo in the Coliseum. And then he shares that moment that we don't see until the manga until after everything is said and done. So where we meet in the manga is Luffy runs into this guy. He's off panel. We can still see the speech bubbles, and he starts bursting out crying. Then the next panel, he's in the fish suit with Kinemon and Zoro running away, and he got out of the Coliseum. We don't see that moment until after everything is said and done. And I feel like the anime really built on it and just showed us that Luffy had so much more in this world than just Ace. And Luffy thought he was all alone, even though he still had his crew, but these are two people that he was raised up on and he considered to be his brothers. And when he lost Ace, he truly at that moment had nothing. And for Sabo to come back, and it was just amazing. I absolutely loved it. For me, the absolute highlight of Dressrosa, though, personally, was the Toy Soldier and Rebecca kind of plotline we were going through. For Rebecca, it was just, you couldn't help but feel just tragedy for her. She was getting mocked. She was getting laughed at. She was literally in real time getting death threats in the Coliseum because her grandfather was put through so much tyranny and just he was caught in the middle of Doflamingo's plan. And for us to see her get that redemption, for us to see the Toy Soldier come back as her father, and then I absolutely love how Luffy weaves into that whole that whole plot line, because he is embracing Rebecca and he is saying, hey, listen, you have the right to go live with your father, because at the end of the story, at the end of the arc, we find out that her father is basically saying, hey, I'm a nobody. People look at me like an animal for all the killing I've done. You will live a better life with me not being in it. And as a royal princess that you are, you will live a better life without the public knowing of me. And when Luffy woke up from his coma, from all his injuries, from the hockey fight with Doflamingo, he was genuinely disgusted because he believes that everyone has a right to live with their family and doesn't care about all the political stuff. So what he went and did is he kidnapped Rebecca. And now, mind you, even though Luffy saved the kingdom, he is still a pirate and he is still a criminal in a lot of people's eyes, even though he just got done saving them. So when he kidnaps Rebecca, it sends the whole kingdom into a flurry to get Rebecca back. And what Rebecca does is he goes and delivers Rebecca to her father. But the people also saw through the rumor that her father was spreading and knew in their hearts that it was wrong. So when everybody started chasing Luffy, it was absolutely beautiful. They started chasing him, and then a couple pages later, you just see them stop crying with a smile on their face, saying that we knew that, confirming that the rumor that they heard that everybody was spreading was false. And it was just absolutely beautiful. I'm also such a big fan of the whole Fujitora and Luffy speech at the end. I really do feel like the anime, that was one of the shining moments in the anime for me. It absolutely killed it with him going on to say, I wish I haven't blinded myself. I can't imagine what your face looks like. I know, like, basically saying that he is basically in regret for blinding himself because of the things he saw, and he wishes that he could just see Luffy's face just once. For me, that is absolutely just heartbreaking because Oda is using the blindness and just basically the whole metaphor of what blindness is. Fujitora blinded himself because of the injustice and the disgust of what the world truly is. And that is such a paradox because he is working for what we now know, if you're caught up with the manga and stuff like that. He is working for the disgust of the world. And it is absolutely just heartbreaking because he knows this too. And he thinks if he goes in, he can change it from the inside out. And that is how he is trying to do his justice. And it is absolutely awesome to see that versus the whole Luffy thing about how he gave him time and he drew it on luck, and then you needed Sengoku to come in his group, and then they basically went after Luffy. It was just absolutely beautiful. The one thing I'm a little iffy on was the Grand Fleet. I do like them, but as we know, I'm now going to go into anime spoilers for all of my anime only people, and then I'm going to be going into a little manga spoilers as this talks a little bit on the Elbaf arc. So that was my fair warning. But in not the most recent, the newest episode, one of the new episodes, we see Barto and Shanks, and we see Barto flying Luffy's flag. I find it really interesting about how the Grand Fleet operates, because in that scene we go on to see that Luffy does not want these people under him, but he still respects them enough to go, hey, listen, if you ever need something in the future, just call me. You guys all have my Viver cards. I will come over and ready to help you, because yes, he doesn't want to ever rule over people. He just wants to have friends. And that also reflects in his crew. He doesn't see his crew as subordinates. He sees them as friends, as brothers, as a family, as like brothers, sisters, and a family, which is absolutely beautiful. But I find it really interesting how even though Luffy, he doesn't necessarily give them permission to fly his flag, they still do it anyway. They're still operating as Luffy's Grand Fleet in the eyes of many. So when he goes and burns down Shanks's flag in the newest episode and one of the first chapters of Elbaf, we see the repercussions in real time. And this really makes me think, is there going to be an altercation between them just because of something that one of Luffy's subordinates did, and that is in turn something Luffy did? But that's for the whole future. Going it back to Dressrosa, I really just do love the counterparts of the different medias, which is why I always preach and I always recommend to read both the manga and the anime if you really do love and enjoy these series, because just the whole proof of this video, there's so much pros and there's so much cons to both media forms. And if you truly love, and I cannot express this enough, if you truly love a series, I feel like you are doing it injustice by not consuming both media types. As me personally, I felt that Dressrosa was a much better paced arc, and it was just a much better arc manga, but I also did enjoy some moments from the anime. So that goes to show you that you guys can definitely enjoy both the manga and anime in their own respective rights. That is all I have to speak about today. I hope you guys kind of enjoyed my little all over the talk about Dressrosa and the state of One Piece and stuff like that. If you guys want to hear me cover another topic, whether that's Thriller Bark, anime versus manga, stuff like that, I'm glad to cover any arc that you guys would love to hear me talk about. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope everybody has a great day. Peace out, guys.